Elon Musk is officially the world's first trillionaire. Think about that. We're living at a time when more and more people are just hanging on by their fingernails to survive in this economy. And Elon Musk has more money and more wealth than anyone in human history. I want to be clear. This is not just some fluke. It is a feature of a rigged economy. Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill cut healthcare for millions of Americans to give guys like Elon bigger tax breaks. The tax code rewards CEOs for firing workers and replacing them with AI. Loopholes have allowed Jeff Bezos to pay an effective tax rate lower than a Boston public school teacher. And we are left with a country where a handful of billionaires at the top pop champagne in their $300 million yachts, while working people take on even more shifts to try to pay off their student loan debt. The top 1% of U.S. earners now have more wealth than the entire middle class. We need to overhaul our tax code. We need a wealth tax. And it's about time that corporations paid their fair share. Today's marker should be a wake-up call that enough is enough.
Elon Musk just became the first trillionaire in human history. And instead of celebrating, CNN called him a white supremacist. Live on air, family. I got the receipts. And what happened next is something they are not going to show you. So hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your post notifications. Because we're gonna go clip by clip through this panel. And I promise you by the time we're done, you're going to see exactly how this narrative gets used, not just against Elon, but against all of us. So the first guest comes out swinging. Her whole argument is basically this. Elon becoming a trillionaire is proof the economy is rigged, that working people are getting squeezed while billionaires pop champagne on $300 million yachts. Quote unquote. That is according to Elizabeth Warren, who you guys see on the screen right now, and you guys watched the clip with me, so you heard what she said, and that we need a wealth tax right now before things get any worse. And look, I hear that. I understand why that message lands for a lot of people, because times are genuinely hard out here and frustration is real. But here's where the argument falls apart, family, and I need you to stay with me on this because this is important. The argument assumes Elon took something from somebody, that his $1 trillion came out of your pocket. And that is not how this works. Think about it like this. If your neighbor opens a garage and starts fixing cars and gets so good at it that he opens 3 locations and hires 200 people, did he steal from you? No. People chose to bring him their cars. People chose to work for him. That's the same energy here. Nobody was forced to buy a Tesla. Nobody was forced to buy a SpaceX launch. The market said yes, and it kept saying yes. And that's how you get to $1 trillion. Now, here's the part the panel don't want to talk about. And before I get to that part, I want you guys to check out this clip with Hassan Piker, who is also a Democratic supporter. And he's a well-known political commentator on YouTube and on Twitch and so forth when it comes to, being popular at screaming and being a Democratic supporter, supporting the Democrat Party. He's very, very high known. So I want you guys to check this out.
Meritocracy is a lie. Lying is OP, and money is fake. This story that we are watching unfold in front of us is a great example of all 3 of those classic Hassan tropes that I advance over and over again. Okay? Elon Musk is a fucking failure. And yet, in spite of his failures, because he lucked into a initial, because he happened to be at the right place at the right time, he has failed upwards with his endless wealth. He's a horrible person. He's an unbelievably insecure person. And yet, he's the richest person on the planet. Right? And we know he doesn't fucking work hard because he tweets all the goddamn time.
Meanwhile,
for all of these workers, this moment is expected to pay off in a very big way.
And liftoff.
From top C-suite executives to welders like Juan Hernandez, many SpaceX workers are expected to become instant millionaires, with SpaceX publicly trading on the NASDAQ.
How did you end up with a job at SpaceX?
And a friend that I met at another job ended up in SpaceX. And then he called me. I told him, I don't even know what SpaceX is, but let's go, you know?
Hernandez says he worked there for 10 years, rising to supervisor, still holding 6,500 shares of SpaceX.
How much money do you stand to make in this IPO?
At opening, it's going to be like around, $880,000.
$880,000.
Yes. As an immigrant, I was always taught just to work hard, do the best I can what I do. And thanks to SpaceX, you see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Do you feel like you've achieved the American dream?
Yeah, but there's no reason to stop.
The rockets are really hard. We blew up a few engines.
Aerospace engineer Tom Mueller was Elon Musk's first SpaceX employee. Now he's the founder of Impulse Space.
I met Elon through an amateur rocket club, and he convinced me to do something exciting, which was one of the best decisions I ever made.
What was it like in those early days of SpaceX?
Pretty crazy, really energized. Like Elon was able to find talent and really get us super jazzed about doing cool stuff and changing the world. We believed it and we did it.
As for the average investor, buying a share of SpaceX after the IPO is no sure bet.
And now we move on to the CNN panel that I was talking about. And before I go further, I'd rather play a couple minutes and then I'll speak on it.
But
I would try.
Is it a moral failure, Carrie, for somebody to call themselves a trillionaire in this day and age?
I think here's the irony. I was listening to a podcast Elon was on not too long ago, and he said pretty soon with the advent of robots, there will be no manual labor. Pretty much money's going to be useless. We won't even need money because they're going to take over and it'll be cheap labor and money won't even it'll be a cashless currency. We don't need it in this society. And here he is right here, the very first trillionaire. So I was looking I wonder what he would do with $1 trillion, very much like what Jimmy Kimmel was just doing. In my mind, what could you solve? What kind of problems could you solve in our world? So just humor me for just a few moments. If you spent $1 million every single day, it would take you more than 2,700 years to spend $1 trillion. What you could effectively do with $1 trillion is get rid of global poverty. You could end world hunger. You could cure major diseases like malaria, and you could completely transition the global energy sector to renewables. The fact that he has this type of money only tells me that his power will be more prevalent, and that I cannot guarantee someone like this man would use his power for good.
Well, you've already seen it. I think the great irony in what you just said is that this is the same person who took a hatchet to USAID. And the end result of what we're seeing is that there are thousands of women and children who have died because of the cuts. America has become weaker because we've receded from the world order when it comes to our soft power, something that George W. Bush talked a great deal about. Elon Musk is a white supremacist who believes in things like
Oh boy.
I wasn't even finished the sentence.
You may need a lawyer when this is over, Bakari.
Can I finish the next sentence?
Honestly.
Who believes in things like the great replacement theory?
Honestly, Bakari.
So, yes.
What's wrong with what he said? It makes sense to me.
Wait a minute. Does Elon Musk not believe in the great replacement theory? Is it not a racist theory that's been debunked?
I just think considering we have about 12 defamation cases in my office right now, before you start throwing things around like someone's a white supremacist. Now the senator from the Democratic senator who's got the SWAT sticker on his chest, I think then I would win that case.
Let me just first of all, I want us to stay on topic. Arthur, I would say there are people you just brought up Graham Platt. There are people who have come on this show and called him a straight up Nazi. So that has happened.
But there's
All right. Before we go any further, right? So the part on the panel did not want to talk about is, and I saw them try to move past it fast, there's a welder named Juan Hernandez, an immigrant. Worked at SpaceX. You guys seen the clip I played for you. For 10 years, worked his way up to supervisor, held on to 6,500 in shares of the company. When SpaceX went public, he was sitting on close to $880,000, almost a millionaire from welding. That man looked at the camera and said, as an immigrant, and I quote, I was always taught to work hard and do the best I can. And thanks to SpaceX, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, somebody tell me how that story fits inside the rigged economy argument, quote unquote, because it doesn't. You can't say the system only works for people at the top and then explain away the fact that regular working people, welders, engineers, everyday employees got rich alongside them. Success isn't a crime, and treating it like one doesn't help communities. It just gives people a reason to stay angry instead of a reason to get moving. And then the panel went somewhere else entirely. And this is where it got real messy real fast. As you guys just heard, one of the guests said it flat out called Elon Musk a white supremacist on live television in front of everybody. No evidence, no receipts, just dropped it like it was a fact and kept going. And family, I want you to understand why this matters, because this isn't just a hot take. This is a serious charge. White supremacist is not a word you throw around casually. That label carries weight. It ends careers. It destroys reputations. And when you say it about someone on national television without proof, you're not making a political argument anymore. You're making a legal one, which is exactly why the lawyer on that panel, the defense criminal lawyer, pumped the brakes immediately. He said, I'm being real with you. You guys just heard it. He said something to the effect of, you might need a lawyer when this is over. Because he understood that there are defamation cases that get built on exactly this kind of moment. And the host, Abby Phillips here, tried to move the conversation along because she could see where it was headed. And yet the guest kept pushing, pivoting to the quote-unquote great replacement theory as the evidence. Now, here's what I want you to think about, family. Both sides of the political aisle acknowledge that demographic change is happening in this country. Democrats talk about it all the time and they celebrate it. They call it diversity. They call it progress. They say the country becoming more diverse is a good thing. Republicans look at the same numbers and some of them say they're not sure if it's something to celebrate. That disagreement is a real conversation worth having. But here's the trap. The moment you say, I see it differently, you get called a white supremacist. That's not a debate. That's a shutdown. And when you can't beat the argument, when the facts aren't working for you, when Juan Hernandez is sitting there almost a millionaire because of the same company you're trying to tear down, you reach for the label. Because the label is designed to end the conversation before the other side can finish making their point. And that's what happened on this panel here. The label got dropped, the room got uncomfortable, the lawyer flagged it, and the whole thing unraveled right here on camera. And there you have it.
And well, Bakari is arguing that he has evidence of racial bias. I don't want to litigate that.
If somebody believes in the great replacement, if somebody believes in
litigate that,
if somebody believes in the great replacement theory, I believe I have every ground to stand on. But what I'm not going to do is allow someone just because they're a trillionaire. And this is the problem we have in this country, because somebody has $1 billion or somebody has $1 trillion. People all of a sudden are afraid to speak their truth. That is not going to silence hearing.
Scott Jennings, you've been shaking your head. You've been shaking your head since Carrie started talking. So
I've been all day long. I've been listening to liberals count and spend Elon's money for him. This envy, jealousy, hatred of success. Why is it immoral? Why is it wrong for somebody in our system, our capitalist system, in the greatest nation on earth, to go out and build a company, build companies, build technologies, go into space, aim to go put a colony on Mars, give internet to half the world, all the things he's doing? Why is any of this wrong or bad? Why would we want to discourage entrepreneurship? Why would we want to discourage anybody building anything? That is the nature of
it. That's a fair question, because Elon Musk has also, I mean, he's getting super rich, but a lot of other people are getting rich too. At SpaceX, people who are associated with
that's the wrong frame. And I think that Scott Jennings is wrong, and let me tell you why. because they're liberals, the liberals that you are lambasting right now. No one is saying, and I'm not saying, I can't say no one, but I'm not saying that I'm mad at him for being innovative enough to create an IPO that creates wealth for him or many others. What I am saying, however, is that there has to be some nature of altruism.
Notice the absolute panic. When confronted with the reality of extreme wealth inequality, the conservative default is to scream about jealousy. But the real humiliation happens when the panel brings up a direct progressive policy threat, taxing that new $1 trillion fortune, and Abby Phillip points out exactly how Musk got that money in the first place.
Ro Khanna says you got to tax them at 5%. In 1 year, you could fund free public college and trade school, $10 a day childcare, special needs education nationwide. Bernie Sanders says
How much is Ro Khanna
that Bernie Sanders says this is an argument that rich people, you don't have to be a trillionaire, but people who are making a lot of money should be subject to more Social Security tax because right now they only pay it on less than $200,000 of income. So there are some proposals on the table for how, there are going to be a lot of people making buckets of money in this AI world, and there are going to be a lot of people put out of work. There are proposals on the table to how to make that work for society a little bit better.
Yeah, and I don't think what you were saying, Bakari, was wrong. Look,
I never think what he's saying is wrong. So that's
who? Her? Yes, she does.
She never disagrees with me. She disagrees with me all the time.
How much is someone allowed to have?
Okay, first of all, no one's jealous. I want to point that out.
Yes,
I'm not jealous. Well, not me. I'm not jealous of $1 trillion. Sure, fine. I'm just saying that I know that he's not going to. I'm going to say, to your point, he has used his money for good, for advances. You're right. There are many wonderful things that he has done for society that we now look at and say, guess what? I can now do that. And you're right. Giving internet to people who didn't have internet, amazing, wonderful, good for you. But what I am saying is that I also know that he doesn't believe that he should do the things that we were just pointing out, such as changing what we need to change in this society.
Is he mandated to agree with you?
No, he's not mandated to agree with me, but there should be some checks and balances in this society. People should not be allowed to have $1 trillion. No one human needs that much money, and you know that.
Do you think that these ultra wealthy people, I'm not talking about people with 10, 15, 20, even $100 million. I'm talking about people who are approaching $1 trillion. Do you think that there's more that they should be doing to give back to the societies that helped them get rich? Elon Musk and SpaceX benefited from tens of millions of dollars in government contracts and deals that allowed them to become the company that they are today. Should they be doing? Bakari, can I?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Scott, do you think that they should be doing more?
I think it's up to them. I think that many of them, and Arthur mentioned one, they do a lot. But it's not for me or you or any of us here to tell someone else what to do with what they earned.
Governments do that every single day. It's called taxes.
Yeah, I know. And the rich people in this country pay the vast majority of taxes. And I hear people today saying, oh, it's time that we tax the rich. Folks, I got news for you. We already tax the rich. They pay the vast majority of tax. And I think Elon Musk is the single largest taxpayer in America, and he'll be even bigger now. But is it for us to sit around and say there's a limit on what you can build, there's a limit on what you can earn, and it's now my job to tell you what to do with your money? Hell no.
But Scott, let's leave it there. What if there's a tax that you have to pay to a charity, not to the government? You get to pick what charity. After you make over $100 million, 5% you got to give to a charity.
You will not redistribute my wealth to other private entities.
Okay.
There is the entire right-wing economic philosophy exposed in 10 minutes. They genuinely believe that billionaires who built their empires on taxpayer-funded government contracts owe society absolutely nothing. They view extreme wealth as a divine right, and any attempt to fund public services or demand basic accountability is framed as an attack on their personal freedom. It's not just bootlicking, it's a complete rejection of the American social contract.
There you have it. Right? And once the label got dropped, the conversation shifted, as you guys heard. And this is where it got even wilder. Because now we're into the altruism argument. One guest said flat out that people should not be allowed to have $1 trillion. Said it out loud on television with a straight face. Another one came in right behind him with a proposal of a mandatory 5% charity tax on anyone sitting above $1 million. You guys heard that. You don't get to choose whether to give. You just have to. And I need to sit with that for a second because I want you to really hear what was just said, not aloud. Like it's a violation of something for a man to build enough that the world keeps paying him back for it. That's the frame they're working from. And it doesn't hold up once you look at how the money actually moves. Most of what Elon is worth isn't sitting in a safe somewhere or it's like money he has on hand. It's equity in his companies. It's capital that gets put back into rockets, satellites, vehicles, medical technology, infrastructure. When he builds, that money circulates. People get hired, suppliers get contracts, investors, including everyday people with retirement accounts, see returns based on the success of his company that's in the stock market. So the money he makes, just like any business, supply and demand, you have to invest back in the business to keep it running, let alone understanding that innovation takes place because a business stagnant at one point eventually is going to detonate itself or erases itself because you have to keep being innovative. And you either change with the times or you get left behind. That's not hoarding. That's just how capital works when someone who's actually good at it stays in control of it. Think about it from a street level perspective. If someone in your city built a company from nothing, put 500 people to work, keep reinvesting every single dollar back into growing that thing, would you walk up to him and say, you got too much, you have to hand some over? Most people in the community would say no. We'll say that's somebody to learn from. Now, the host tried an angle, Abby Phillips, and she brought up government contracts. Said SpaceX only got where it was or where it is because the government helped fund it. So Elon owes something back. And I want to clear this up because this argument gets recycled constantly and it deserves a real answer. A contract is not a handout. The government looked at what SpaceX could do and said, build us rockets, take our astronauts to space, do it cheaper than we can do it ourselves. And SpaceX did exactly that. Didn't Elon Musk save astronauts that were stuck in space for X amount of how long? Correct me because we're having a conversation. I'm always open to the possibility of being wrong. But that's the transaction. There's no difference from any other American taxpayer. If they have some value for the government, they can have a government contract if they have a service that's deemable to the government. It's a business deal. The government was the customer, and the result was that taxpayers paid less for more. It's no different if you're in the tech industry and you work for cybersecurity, you have a cybersecurity consulting business or something, and you offer the government a source to protect the most valuable, sensitive information that shouldn't be hacked into, or basically to prevent adversaries like China or any other countries who are our competitors, but also our allies in peace because we're stronger together than apart with our trade deals and so forth. If you can provide that value that the government needs, you can get a government contract too. There's no difference from when a government contract is given to vendors when they have an event that's government funded through states and local government and local legislators and things like that, where you get paid. To make it quite simpler, quite frank, let's say you have a property and you want to go into Section 8. If you have a property in regards to that qualifies for Section 8 based on the square footage of that property, and you want to help someone with housing, the government will pay you, and the government was the customer in regards in exchange for you providing housing for an American citizen who need it, and they will pay you to cover the rent because obviously they can't afford it, but for them to have somewhere to live. So the government is a business deal. The government is the customer that is actually receiving some sort of service given by the person who provides that value. So if I can provide a house to house an American taxpayer and the government is the customer that I am giving up my rightful property to in exchange for a business deal to provide someone to have a house to be in the name of subsidy. Hey, so it's a business deal. The government was the customer and the result was that taxpayers paid less for more. That's not a subsidy. That's competition working the way it's supposed to. Here's what this argument is actually about though. And I want to be straight with you. It's not about helping people in need. If it were about helping people, they'll be looking at what SpaceX is already doing. Go back to my analogy with the same thing. If I had a property and I decide to apply for Section 8 based on the square footage of my property, so giving up my property that I worked hard for to maintain and taking the risk as the government being a customer to say, here, I have a house where you can basically, in the name of a subsidy to help an American who needs somewhere to live. It's the same thing, right? I'm helping someone that needs a place to live, giving up my property that I work hard for, paying taxes and everything into the system, doing everything legally by providing some type of value to give to the government that in exchange as a business deal pay me while I take on the risk of a tenant. So I'm helping someone have a home. In the name of my property, I'm taking a risk of someone that as a tenant wise, I have to verify, do background checks and so forth and do my due diligence and go through the requirements that the government need, as in the government being a customer, to basically take on Section 8 housing. Part of that program, putting my value of property up for grabs, taking on a risk. And the same thing SpaceX is doing, providing a service to the government, let alone jobs. Internet to remote communities, low-cost access to space research, jobs that turn welders into millionaires. The real issue is that Elon stopped writing checks to the causes they wanted him to fund. He changed his politics, bought a platform they didn't control, and started saying things they disagreed with. And that's when he became a problem. And Proverbs chapter 14, verse 23 lays it out simply. Hard work brings profit, but talk alone leads to poverty. The people on that panel have been talking. Elon has been building. The results speak for themselves. The wealth tax sounds like justice until you look at the states that already tax the heaviest. Chicago, New York. Don't you see with Mr. Kent, who owns the Miami Dolphins NFL team, how the mayor, Zoran Mudami, basically made an advertisement in front of his building that he pays taxes for and to keep up and running in New York as a way of advertising in front of somebody's home to say we're going to tax the wealthiest. And then he just destroyed a business opportunity to bring a multitude of jobs for New Yorkers to have a job. And now he took his business elsewhere to Texas and Florida. And now the tax base or the tax structure, or I should say the economy in which the taxes would have been paid to invest into the state of New York economy or infrastructure, if your tax base shrinks and becomes more shrinking, or not shrinking, that's not a word. If it comes more in the name of shrinkage where you are basically running out big corporations and the wealthy who pay the highest taxes, you are hurting your tax base, which in exchange, the money that translates for you to build infrastructure and do the things that you want as a politician, if your tax base shrink, you don't have that much money coming in. So speaking to Abby Phillips with checks and balances, what happens is you go into the red because now your economy within your state doesn't have enough of a tax base or a strong tax base to pay for everything that you're trying to pass in the name of saying that you have the best interest as a public official for New York, American New York citizens or New Yorkers in general. So I just want to use that example, but you see that with Chicago and you see that with New York, and now you wonder why they are in a deficit and you wonder why the infrastructure is poor, there's no public safety, and everything is turning into shambles. Right? They don't have free college, they don't have affordable childcare, and they don't have programs they promised. The money gets taken and it disappears into the machine every time. So, at the end of the panel, the real mistake wasn't just one guest calling somebody a white supremacist with no proof. The whole frame was wrong from the jump. The idea that building something makes you suspect, the success needs to be punished, and that the label is a substitute for the argument. We don't move forward as a community by tearing people down who built something. We move forward by watching what they did, studying the blueprint, and going to work. Judge what you hear by the evidence, not the label someone slapped on you to win the room. All right? And I'm just saying that because when you basically tax the rich and the rich have the money to move and go wherever they please and go where they're appreciated, not tolerated, and think you're going to keep taxing them to basically fund the infrastructure or fund the policies or things that you're trying to get passed as a mayor or a governor, and you're deeming them the enemy, why would they go somewhere where they're basically being tolerated in regards of just to strengthen the tax base so you could do what you want by continue to punish them and tax them more as an incentive to continue to fund whatever you got going on. But since they're not doing that and they're taking their money where they're appreciated, they're the enemy, let alone not like you didn't deem them in the first place for saying you're going to tax them like they don't pay the vast amount of taxes that the wealthiest business owners and the wealthiest people in the world. And from a common sense perspective, the more money they have, the more jobs they can create. Because if you want to be honest, from a tax perspective, they can actually use employees as a way for tax write-offs to keep more money to continue to build more infrastructure within their business to then employ more jobs within whatever state they're in. But if the state is against them and taxing them to death, then at the end of the day, you are basically destroying our company so you're destroying our company, you're hurting the person that builds something, and you're hurting the jobs that could be opportunities for many people to take care of their families and do what they need to do. And also learn valuable skills from that company. So at the end of the day, and also just to put out there, the working class people that Elizabeth Warren was talking about in the beginning, the first clip that I played, if you basically push out big corporations and the wealthy who create jobs, you end up taxing the middle class people who don't have no money to afford to be taxed to death, let alone the jobs being taken away because you made the wealthiest the enemy. So like I said, judge what you hear by evidence, not the label you slapped on it to win the room. Don't deem someone evil for actually building something and helping people. So drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear where you stand on this. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications, spread that peace, love, and positivity. Let the love supersede the hate, family. On that note, peace.